If you've been on TikTok lately, you've probably seen bed rotting. People staying in bed all day, calling it self-care and radical rest. Gen Z is embracing it as a way to recover from burnout. And I'm finding it's not just Gen Zs who are doing this. I see you millennials and Gen X. I've even seen it with some boomers. But here's what's actually happening. Your nervous system has gone into shutdown mode. Today, we're talking about the difference between genuine rest and nervous system shutdown, why your body chooses sometimes this immobilization over action, and what to do when you literally can't get yourself out of bed. You'll learn the science behind shutdown, how to tell if you're resting or avoiding, and very practical tools to gently reactivate you when you're stuck. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the podcast. Woo! And again, this is not just for Gen Z, even though that's where I see most of this reporting coming from. But I know because my clients tend to be not Gen Z. And I have people who just are, again, like scrolling all day on their phone or sitting, really not moving. And I have certainly had these days where maybe I'm not in bed necessarily, but I'm maybe sitting on the couch all day, same kind of thing. So what is bed rotting? Let's just start with what it actually is. And the term went viral on TikTok in like 2023, but it's continued to gain traction. And there was searches spiking throughout 2024 and into 2025. So it refers to spending extended time in bed again, or that can be on a couch really, or just laying down. Often an entire day or weekend doing nothing particularly productive, scrolling on your phone, streaming, watching TV, snacking, maybe napping on and off. You're not sick. You're not necessarily depressed, although that can be part of it. You're just staying in bed. Or staying on the couch or staying really horizontal. The people that I see mostly posting about it frame it as intentional rest, kind of like, I don't know, like a rebellion against the hustle culture, a way to reclaim downtime in an overstimulated world. And hey, I get the appeal. Okay, we're all exhausted. So many of us are overscheduled, overworked, overstimulated. The idea of just saying, sort of screw it and staying horizontal for 24 hours, sounds pretty damn good. But here's the thing. What people are calling bed rotting isn't usually rest, it's shutdown. So I want to talk first about the difference between rest versus shutdown. There's a massive difference between resting and shutting down, and most people can't tell which one they're doing. But here's the thing. There are actually 3 states you need to understand, okay? Not just 2, not just, rest or not. And so I want to explain what's happening in your nervous system. You know me. Let me give you the science too, because that's where it really gets interesting, I think. And then you'll understand, because if you're listening, you probably think this isn't good for me. And it might be, not all quote unquote bed rotting is bad. Sometimes it can be a great thing. So I want to be able to distinguish that for you. So your autonomic nervous system has 3 main states. Your autonomic is often also called your automatic nervous system, right? It has 3 main states according to Polyvagal theory, which I've talked about a lot here on the podcast. It was developed by Dr. Stephen Porges, Porges. I think I always say his name wrong. Sorry, doctor. Think of these as 3 different kind of operating systems your body can run, okay? So you have what's called your ventral vagal state. Number 1 that's your social engagement system. This is when you feel safe, you feel connected and calm, you think clearly, you're emotionally available, your body is genuinely at rest. This is where recovery happens. So this is the goal, this state. Number 2, though, is your sympathetic state. Your sympathetic state is your mobilization system. That's what we call it. This is your fight or flight. Your body's activated. You are ready to move. You could be anxious. You could be angry. You're revved up. And then the 3rd state is what's called your dorsal vagal state. And that's your shutdown system. This is the oldest part of your nervous system, and it's designed for one thing and one thing only, immobilization. When your body knows if fighting or fleeing doesn't work, you kind of play dead. Your body plays dead. You collapse, you freeze, you shut down. Okay. So, and sadly, this is what's happened to rape victims. This state takes over. If someone's in some sort of violent situation where they just can't get out, they can't fight or flee, right? It's like the brain takes over as a way to not be so terrified. So it's an old that's why it's so old in our evolutionary body. Now here's what makes this confusing. What you do while you're in bed rotting determines which state you're actually in. And this is where most people, I think, get it wrong and why I wanted to do this episode. So recovery, that's the ventral vagal, is active rest that actually restores your nervous system. So this looks like going for a walk outside, connecting with a friend, meditating, engaging in a hobby you enjoy, sitting quietly without screens. I'll say it again, sitting quietly without screens, no electronics, no phone, or nothing. Your body feels calm but present. You're choosing activities that feel nourishing. And when you're done, you feel recharged. That's genuine rest, real recovery. You get that. Passive consumption is what most people think is rest, but it's not actually restorative. I'm going to say that again. Passive consumption, in my experience, is what most people think is rest, but it's not actually restorative. And that's, doom scrolling on your phone for hours, binge watching Netflix, playing video games mindlessly, grazing on snacks while you're staring at a screen. You're not in shutdown, but you're also not recovering. You're just numbing. Your nervous system stays in a low-grade stress state. I'm going to say that again. Your nervous system, when you're doing this, is staying in a low-grade stress state because you're constantly consuming stimulation without actually processing anything. And I have so much research for this episode. I went down every rabbit hole there is. And whenever I say research or the downloads or past episodes for any of my new folks, you can find that below the video. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe if you are. Leave a comment. And otherwise, you can go to the website, abbymetcalf.com, go to this episode page, bed rotting, and you'll find all the research, all the downloads, everything I talk about, that you would have to click on, you can find in one of those two places. Okay. Really easy for you. So, and you can also read the blog, by the way. I always have a blog that goes with every single episode just to make it's not a transcript, it's an actual blog, to make it easy for you, because you might have someone who doesn't like to listen to a podcast, but who would read for 10 minutes, right, about this. So there's also the blog. Okay. So when I say the research, go look if you feel like it, if you don't believe me, or if you want to also look at the research. So the research shows that this kind of passive rest doesn't restore your energy or improve your mood. It does not. You might feel temporarily distracted, but when you stop, you're going to feel just as drained as before. That's why, it kind of keeps going on. Now, shutdown, that's that dorsal vagal I talked about, is when your body has essentially turned off. You feel numb, you feel heavy, completely disconnected. You don't think really clearly. You feel like you can't get up even if you wanted to. Time passes without you really noticing. You're not choosing this. Your nervous system has made the choice for you, right? So, and here's the it's all important parts, right? But here's the really important part. Bed rotting usually involves passive consumption. You're lying in bed, you're scrolling social media, you're streaming shows for 10 hours. You think you're resting, but you're actually stuck in a middle zone that doesn't give you what you need. You're not in full shutdown, but you're also not recovering. You are just avoiding. And that's what's not good. So when people say bed rotting is self-care, what they often mean is I'm lying in bed consuming content and calling it rest. But passive consumption, as I said, isn't recovery. And if you're doing it long enough or often enough, you might actually be sliding into shutdown without realizing it. And that's what is so dangerous. So here's how to tell the difference. Let me tell you how to tell the difference. Because again, I have absolutely taken a day off, laid in bed, done nothing, whatever, and have found it really rejuvenating. I've also laid in bed, done nothing, whatever, and not found it rejuvenating. Found myself even more tired than when I started. That's kind of how you know. But let me tell you how you really know the difference. Here are signs that you're in recovery. In other words, that you're in that ventral vagal, the one we want. These are signs you're in recovery. You feel calm and peaceful. You can think clearly. You're making active choices about what to do with your time. You feel recharged after resting. You can easily transition back to, like activity when you're ready. Like it's so you could and then get right back into things. You feel connected to yourself and to other people. All of that are signs of that. Now, signs that you're in passive consumption, remember, that's the one we don't want. You're scrolling or watching, but not really enjoying it after a while. You realize, I'm not even enjoying this. Time passes without you noticing. How many times has that happened to you? You kind of wake up, right? And you've been on your phone for 4 hours. You feel slightly numb or zoned out. You can't get up if you need to, but you don't want. You can get up, if you need to, but you don't want to. So you could move, you could do things. It's so hard to find the motivation to do it. You feel vaguely guilty or like you're quote unquote wasting time, right? And when you stop, you don't feel better. Okay. And then here's the signs that you're in complete shutdown. That's that, again, dorsal vagal. That's the one we really don't want. You feel numb, heavy, or disconnected. You can't think clearly or make decisions well. You feel like you can't get up even if you did want to. You feel worse after extended time in bed, not better, or on the couch or whatever. You feel isolated or like you're watching your life kind of from outside yourself. You're avoiding something even if you can't name what. Yeah, I'll let that sit there a second. So research on dissociation and shutdown states, there's a lot of research on it. And it shows that people often describe feeling like they're not really there, like they're moving through fog or like they're watching themselves from a distance. That's your clue that you're not resting, you're shutting down. So why does your nervous system shut down? That's got to be the next question, right? Why does this happen? Your nervous system shuts down when it perceives a threat that's too big to fight or escape from, okay? It doesn't mean you can name it. It doesn't mean it makes sense. It just means that's what it is. So in our evolutionary past, obviously that was very useful. If a predator was about to attack you and you couldn't fight it or outrun it, playing dead could save your life, right? It could. But here's the problem. Your modern nervous system can't tell the difference between a predator and your, overflowing inbox or the 15 projects you have due or whatever it is. It can't tell the difference between a physical threat and emotional overwhelm. So when life feels too much, too many demands, too much stress, too little support, too much uncertainty, your body might choose shutdown. And as you might imagine, there's a lot of research on trauma and chronic stress, and it shows consistently that shutdown is especially common in people who've experienced situations where fighting or fleeing didn't work. So maybe you grew up in a home where expressing your needs led to criticism or punishment. Maybe you've been in relationships where your boundaries weren't respected and you didn't really know how to draw a boundary because you never learned. Maybe you faced situations where no matter what you did, it didn't change the outcome. That could be right now. You could at your job or somewhere else or with your partner or your parents or whoever. Over time, your nervous system learns that action doesn't help. So it stops trying and it just shuts down instead. And I want to say this too right here. Sorry, I think I'm talking fast. Am I talking fast? I'm so excited. Okay. Things keep occurring to me. I want to say right now, this is different from depression. They can overlap, but this is different from depression. Depression is a mental health condition and it has very specific diagnostic criteria. Okay. I'm not going to get into that today. but we have our diagnostic and statistical manual of mental disorders that we psychologists and healthcare professionals use. That it's very specific. I know we use that word, oh, he's depressed, she's depressed. We say that a lot, but there's really specific criteria for that. Shutdown is a nervous system state, not a mental health condition. I'm going to say that again. So depression, mental health condition, which obviously affects the nervous system. But shutdown that I'm talking about today is a nervous system state. You can be in shutdown without being clinically depressed, and you can be depressed without being in shutdown. But they often show up together, which is, I think, why it gets so confusing. Okay. But so I'm not going to talk about depression today. Just want to be clear, but I'll allude to some things later when we talk about help. So let's talk about when shutdown becomes a problem. And again, here's the tricky part. Occasional shutdown isn't necessarily a problem. If you've had an incredibly stressful week and you spend Saturday in bed recovering, that might be exactly what your nervous system needs. Okay? I've done it. Have you done it? It's good. It's beautiful. If you can manage that, it's kind of amazing. The problem is when shutdown becomes your default coping mechanism, when that's all you got. The research shows that when you regularly go into shutdown mode, instead of addressing what's overwhelming you, you're not solving the problem, you're hitting a pause button. And every time you come out of shutdown, the same stressors are still there, so you go right back into shutdown again. It creates a horrible, horrible cycle, a self-fulfilling prophecy kind of cycle. It's not good. You feel overwhelmed, you shut down. You feel temporarily relieved, you re-enter your life. You feel overwhelmed again, and you shut down again, right? And over time, this is so important to hear. Over time, it takes less and less stress to trigger shutdown because your nervous system has learned that this is the safest option. And you might have already found that. You might have found previously that your tolerance for things was higher. And then you end up doing this bed rotting thing or something close to it, and your tolerance is actually getting lower. I know it's hurting you. It's kind of like, I feel upset and I have a drink. It works very temporarily, but it's going to over time. And if I keep drinking too much, right, it's going to impact me in a really negative way. This happens with my clients who smoke pot regularly, other things. You end up with a lower tolerance because you're using this particular coping mechanism, if you're using it for that, instead of addressing the real problem. And there's a lot of research on avoidance, right? We call it avoidance coping. And the research on avoidance coping shows that while, like I just said, it provides temporary relief, it actually increases anxiety and stress over time. You're not building resilience, you're building a pattern of escape. And that's why you're probably listening to me right now, because you realize this is not working for you, this way you're dealing with things. So there's 5 things to do when you're in shutdown, okay? There's many things you could do. These are my 5. So if you recognize that you're in shutdown mode, right, what do you do? And the goal isn't to force yourself out of bed through sheer willpower, okay? That usually backfires. You already know it does. The goal is to gently help your nervous system shift from that dorsal vagal shutdown back to ventral vagal safety. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why when you've just tried through willpower, it hasn't worked before. And actually, this is a good time to mention that I have a great free download for today. I'm killing it with my free downloads, I want to say. Well, I'm trying to really help you have something after the podcast that you can do that will, move the needle. So the free download for today it's a guide on nervous system regulation, and it'll help you understand what's really happening in your body and give you practical tools to start feeling better, right? And of course, I have a therapy to go bundle, which I'll talk about at the very end if you want to get that. But for free, you can get this other thing. So, and I'll mention it again at the end. But for now, these are my 6, and these are all research-backed tools to help you. Okay. So number 1, and these are really specific. Start with the smallest possible movement. Again, from the research. This is the stuff to do when you're this shut down. When you're in shutdown, big actions feel impossible. So don't try to get up, shower, start your day. That's why You're trying that. That's what's not working. And you think it's a willpower issue. But your nervous system has shifted into something that you got to overcome biologically first, not psychologically. I'm going to say that again. You got to get out. This is a biological nervous system thing. Well, you keep trying to address it psychologically first. And I'm not saying later, you have to look at what's bothering you. That's my therapy to go bundle. I'll have more stuff in there. But first, and that's what the free download is for, let's just get you moving, like something small. And so really, again, from the research, start wiggling your toes. Seriously, just move your toes. Then maybe stretch your legs. Then maybe sit up. Maybe. Then maybe stand. Each tiny movement sends a signal to your nervous system that it's safe to come back online. Movement, again, even micro movement, it activates your sympathetic nervous system just enough to pull you out of freeze without overwhelming you. I'm telling you, I've been doing this with clients for many years. It really, really works. So just wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers, just a little bit, just little tiny bit. You're trying to get, I always say, like, you can't get from shitty to giddy, like you can't get from, you're like not even on the ladder, right? And you're trying to run up the ladder, like, to like starting your day and being motivated. Don't do that. Turn the inner critic off for a moment and do what I'm telling you. The second thing you want to do, so you're wiggling your toes, you're doing that, and then you want to engage your senses. Sorry. Number two is you want to engage your senses. Why am I having trouble with that word? So shutdown, again, talking about complete shutdown, often involves really a disconnection from your body and your environment. So grounding techniques that engage your senses can help you come back. One of the most common grounding techniques is, notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. That's a common one. One I love is picking a color like blue and then naming everything in the room that's blue, something like that. And these aren't just distraction techniques. They're literally telling your nervous system, we're here, we're present, we're safe enough to notice our surroundings. You see that? Like, again, small. And part of my therapy to go bundle is a whole list of grounding techniques. But again, I'll talk about that later. Number 3 is to use your voice. This always surprises people, but it's really powerful. I know it sounds weird, but talking out loud, humming, singing activates your ventral vagal system. Your vagus nerve connects to the muscles of your throat and face. So using your voice stimulates the part of your nervous system that helps you feel safe and connected. So you don't have to call someone or have a conversation. Just hum a song, sing a song, read something out loud. Talk to yourself about what you're noticing. The sound of your own voice can be enough to shift your nervous system state. I know, it's amazing, right? So even just listening to my fabulous melodic voice is not enough. You need more. You need yourself. Okay. Number 4 would be to get vertical. There's something about being horizontal that keeps you in shutdown. There's a lot of research on posture and mood. I did a wonderful episode a few years ago with Dr. Eric Pepper. Dr. Pepper, is that the best name ever? Who's one of the leading kind of researchers in the world on biofeedback. And we did a whole thing on posture and stuff. So I'll link to that. Again, like below the video and on the website. I'll link to that episode. You might want to listen to it. He's brilliant about just like putting your shoulders back and your chest out, things like that. There's a lot of research on posture and mood, and it always shows that sitting or standing upright actually improves your emotional state compared to lying down or being slumped. So it's not just psychological. Your body takes cues from your physical position all the time. I'm not going to go into all that here, but it really does. So once you've done some small movements, engage your senses, try sitting up. Even if you stay in bed, or on the couch, just sit up fully, right? Then maybe stand, maybe walk to another room. Each shift in position helps your nervous system reorient, and that's what you're looking for. And number 5 is after you do all, and this would only be if you've done all the rest of this, is you could ask yourself what you're avoiding. And this is a hard one, but it's probably the most important. Shutdown is almost always about avoidance. I'm telling you, something feels too overwhelming to face, so your nervous system chooses to shut down instead. But, here's the problem. Whatever you're avoiding obviously doesn't go away just because you're not looking at it. It's still there when you come back. So, right? So you need to figure out what it is. And I'm not talking about surface level avoidance like, I'm avoiding my inbox or, I'm talking about what's underneath that. What are you actually afraid of? And let me give you some questions to help you get there. I wasn't going to do this, but I am. So let me give you some questions to help you get there. You might ask yourself, what feels too hard to face right now? Is it a difficult conversation you need to have? A decision you need to make? It could be a loss you haven't fully grieved. It could be loneliness you're trying not to face. It could be a drinking or drug problem you're trying not to face. Uncertainty about the future. Right here in the United States today, it is scary times. My kids are in college and I'm like, I would hate to be coming out into this world right now. I would hate to be trying to figure out what I should be. Oh, AI just came out. You just went to school for 3 years for software engineering. Sorry, that's probably not a job anymore. It is like, it's scary. It's scary. I think it's scary. Guess what? That could be enough to stick you in bed. So I would have you ask yourself, like, what happens if you imagine getting out of bed and engaging with your life? What feelings come up? Is it anxiety, dread, overwhelm? Are you sad? Whatever that feeling is probably a clue. What would you have to deal with if you weren't in shutdown? What would you be doing today, quote unquote, if you weren't in shutdown? Sometimes shutdown is protecting you from feeling something you just don't want to feel. What is that, right? Is there something you're hoping will resolve itself if you just avoid it long enough, right? Obviously, spoiler, it will not. And there's there's research on avoidance, and it shows that the things we avoid tend to get bigger over time, not smaller. There's actual research on this, though. It's not just me, stating the obvious. The longer you avoid a difficult conversation, the harder it becomes to have. The longer you avoid making a decision, the more anxious you feel about that thing. The longer you avoid processing grief, the more it shows up in other ways, right? All of it. You don't have to solve it right now. I want to be really clear. You do not have to solve it right now. You just have to name it, because once you know what you're avoiding, you can start taking tiny steps towards addressing it instead of shutting down every time it comes up. And again, if this is really hitting you, I don't usually try to sell hard here on the podcast, but I have to tell you the Therapy to Go bundle today for you. I'll tell you what's in it at the end because I have something that addresses this exactly. I was very, very thoughtful with that bundle today. There's a lot in there because I think this is a big issue. And I was thinking of what my own kids face. And I do have some clients who are younger who do face this. And like I said, I have Gen Zs and I have millennials also doing this. So there you go. Not Gen Zs, sorry, Gen Xs and millennials who are also doing this. So again, maybe that means scheduling a difficult conversation. That's what I do. If I'm noticing I'm avoiding something, I schedule it. I'll tell Gary or my kids or something like, hey, let's talk today at 4 or something, because it stops me from chickening out, Maybe it means talking to a therapist about some grief you've been carrying or fear you've been carrying. Maybe it means sitting with loneliness instead of numbing it. The action doesn't have to be big. It just has to be in the direction of what you're avoiding, not away from it. So it doesn't, again, have to solve it. Okay. Actually, I'm going to give you more tips. Okay. Number 6, just thought of another one. Because this is, I think, really big. You need to reality check your bandwidth and stop comparing. I think this is something nobody wants to hear, but everybody needs to. Different people have different bandwidth. They just do. Sometimes I'll be telling my sister about stuff I'm doing, and she's like, oh my God, I can't even hear you talking about your day. I'm overwhelmed. It doesn't mean my sister has something wrong with her. We just have different bandwidth for things. We just have different how much we can get done in a day and be emotionally okay. different people have different bandwidth, and yours might be smaller than you think it should be. And, you need to make it okay, because we live in a culture that really glorifies being busy, doing it all, not slowing down, hustle, hustle. You see people on social media, they have the thriving career, the perfect relationship, amazing hobbies, lots of money. They're always traveling, they're hosting dinner parties or training for marathons. And you think, why can't I do that? What's wrong with me that I can barely get through my day without collapsing, right? And it's all BS, I need to tell you. I'm just telling you right now, it is so much BS. I have quite a few famous people in my practice, people that, and I have for many years, who many would be like, that's the dream life. That is the only thing, oh my God, they have it made. They do not. They do not. There is so much smoke and mirrors in this world. Because the truth is, you don't know what's actually happening in those people's lives. You don't know that they're not, beating their kids or doing something else. You don't know. You think you know and you don't. You don't know if they have help that you don't have. You don't know if they're one bad week away from their own shutdown. You don't know if they're secretly struggling. And you know what? It doesn't even matter, because you're not them. And it's okay. There is research on individual differences in stress tolerance. There's a lot of it. And it shows that people have vastly different capacities based on genetics, early life experiences, current support systems, mental and physical health, accumulated stress over time. So what's sustainable for someone else might be completely unsustainable for you. And that's not a moral failing. You're not doing it wrong. You're not broken. It's just friggin' reality. It's okay. It's sort of like being 4'10" and being like, you know what? I'm probably not going to be a pro basketball player. It just is. It's not always. We seem to have courtesy or grace for the physical stuff, like that, but not the other stuff. And it's wrong not to. If you're regularly going into shutdown, one of the first questions you need to ask yourself is, am I trying to do more than my actual bandwidth allows? And my guess is yes. So let me say how to reality check your bandwidth, okay? Make a list of everything you're currently responsible for. Dump it. It's a brain dump. And I mean everything. Your job, your household tasks, your relationships, caregiving responsibilities, financial obligations, health maintenance, everything. Write it all down. Then you can ask yourself, what am I doing out of genuine desire and what am I doing out of obligation? And try to be honest. How much of your life is spent on things you think you should do versus things you actually want to do? Then you're going to say, what can come off my plate right now? I know you're going to say nothing, but that's not true. There's always something that can come off your plate. Can you lower your expectations a little bit for that clean house? Can you say no to a volunteer commitment? Can you stop hosting every holiday? Can you delegate something at work? Can you ask for friggin' help? Then I want you to look at what external structure or accountability might I add? Okay, because that really helps. Sometimes shutdown happens because you're trying to do everything alone with no external support. I argue with my son about this all the time. Adding structure can actually help. Join a study group so you're forced to show up. Schedule therapy appointments. Sign up for a workout class where people will notice if you're not there. Sometimes you need external forcing functions to keep you engaged when that internal motivation is gone. The goal isn't to do more. The goal is to align what you're doing with what you can actually handle. And if that means doing less than other people, so be it. You're not in competition. Stop with the FOMO. You're trying to build a sustainable life. I feel like I'm yelling at you. I'm sorry. It's Jewish mother love. Okay. Now I want to talk about how to prevent shutdown in the first place, because that would really be the goal, right? It's the hardest when you're already there. It's the best way to deal with shutdown is to catch yourself before you get there. I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. That means learning to recognize when you're getting overwhelmed and taking action before your nervous system decides the only option is to turn off, because that's what's happening. We both know. We both, if you think about it, you know that's what's happening. You go, 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 because you're so scared of the bed rot, of the turn off, of the laying like a vegetable that you overdo. But the reason you have to go lay like a vegetable is because you're overdoing. Otherwise, you could be more consistent. So I want you to think, I'm going to give you 3 preventative strategies that actually work. Strategy 1 is to build in regular ventral vagal rest. So what do I mean? Don't wait until you're completely depleted to rest. Schedule regular time for genuine rest, the kind where you feel calm, not collapsed. So again, those walks in nature. I'm a city girl. I don't want to like the nature, but you know what I mean. Being outside, time with a friend who makes you feel safe, a hobby you enjoy, sitting quietly without your phone, any of those things. Research on stress and recovery, it so consistently shows that regular proactive rest is far more effective than reactive shutdown. You're teaching your nervous system that rest is available before it has to force you into it. Strategy 2. Set boundaries before you're overwhelmed. A lot of shutdown happens because people don't set boundaries until they're already past their limit. And by then it feels like the only option is to withdraw completely. So, you got to practice saying no earlier. You got to delegate tasks. You have to ask for help. You have to stop your friggin' people pleasing. Communicate your limits before you hit them. This keeps you out of the zone where shutdown feels like the only escape. Right? Get support. If you're regularly going into shutdown, that's a sign you need more support than what you currently have. Again, it might mean therapy. It might mean honest conversations with the people in your life about what you need. It might mean making bigger changes to reduce chronic stress. You can't regulate your nervous system alone if your environment is constantly dysregulating you. It doesn't work that way. So sometimes the solution isn't more self-help techniques. It's changing your situation. It really works. It helps. And if I've got my Boundaries Made Easy book. If you, and there's a Boundaries Made Easier workbook, if you really need to work on your boundaries, there's a lot of free things on the website. Just put keyword in boundaries. If you don't have any money, do that. If you want to have your hand held, get a book. You really have to look at those boundaries is what I want to say. So let me wrap up and then I'll talk about the free download and the Therapy to Go bundle. But I want to wrap up, bed rotting is not self-care. It's usually that passive consumption masquerading as rest. And sometimes it's your nervous system's really last-ditch effort to protect you from overwhelm by shutting you down. The key is that you have to know the difference between recovery, passive rest, and shutdown. That's where you need to be. And you can just ask yourself that question all the time. Recovery restores you. That's how you know. Passive consumption numbs you. That's how you know. Shutdown protects you by turning you off completely. And again, occasional shutdown is totally fine. It's probably your body's way of forcing rest when you won't give it to yourself. But chronic shutdown keeps you stuck. And that's what I don't want for you. And I think the good news is that once you understand what's happening, you can start working with your nervous system instead of against it. You can learn to recognize which state you're in. Use those small, gentle tools, wiggle those toes, hum, to help yourself come back online when you're stuck. You can reality check your bandwidth and stop comparing yourself to people who have different capacity than you, right? And most importantly, you can really start addressing what's overwhelming you instead of just escaping from it. Let's make some changes to your life. Your nervous system is doing its best to keep you safe. But safety doesn't always look like staying in bed. Sometimes safety looks like taking action even when it's hard. Sometimes it looks like asking for help even when that's hard. Sometimes it looks like doing less so you can actually sustain what matters, right? So you need to tell the difference between recovery, passive consumption, and shutdown, right? Again, recovery is active rest that restores you, walking, connecting, meditating, hobbies. Passive consumption, scrolling, binge watching, feels like rest, but it doesn't restore you. Shutdown is that numb, heavy, can't move, avoiding. Okay? I'm repeating this at the end so you really get it. When you notice you're in shutdown, start with those smallest movement, wiggle your toes, stretch, ground yourself, using one of the grounding techniques. Use your voice, hum, talk out loud, sing. Get vertical, sit up, stand, walk to another room, try to name what you're avoiding without trying to solve it. Just try to name it. And then really reality check your bandwidth. Are you trying to do more than you can actually handle? And I really want you to start, you got to prevent shutdown. You have to schedule regular recovery time, not passive, not that passive consumption, actual restoration. You got to set boundaries early, not after you're overwhelmed. You have to stop comparing your bandwidth to other people. You maybe have to take things off your plate that are obligation, not genuine desire. And you probably have to add some external structure and accountability, get some support, have honest conversations, maybe make some environmental changes. All right. Okay. So if you want to dive deeper into understanding your nervous system and why you're feeling this way, again, download the free guide on nervous system regulation. You can find it again under the video or on the website. It's really going to help you understand what's really happening in your body and give you those practical tools to start feeling better. And if you're ready to really tackle this, I have this Therapy to Go bundle specifically for breaking out of shutdown mode and rebuilding energy. You're going to get worksheets to identify your specific triggers, step-by-step action plan for kind of that gentle re-engagement, exercises to regulate your nervous system without overwhelming yourself, right? There's also a guided visualization as part of this one. And it's just $10. It's $10. And you also can find that again below the video on the website. And it includes the free download. So if you're sure, like I just need to do more, you don't have to download twice. If you just get that, you'll get everything. But it's really everything you need to start making real changes today. It's really kind of me holding your hand through it. So there you go. All right. That's it. I know that was a lot. Thank you for hanging out. I know I gave you a lot of information, but I really want you to get out of this. I really want you to notice what's helping you and what's not, and have very practical tools to change. All right. Mwah. Have an amazing week, and I'll talk to you real soon.